If we're talking about a theory of everything, the first question we have to establish, does God exist?
Yes.
Well, we couldn't stay away forever, could we, ladies and gentle bastards? We're back again with the world's smartest dumbass, Chris Langan. A man so intelligent that when he speaks, he sounds like an utter simpleton who ate a dictionary of philosophy and has already vomited up half the contents onto his own face. And today he's talking about how God am the big real. And what a way to start. A theory of everything, which is a scientific term, would in fact have no particular opinions on the matter of the Godman and whether or not he's a real boy. It is a hypothetical framework that's trying to unify all fundamental forces and particles that we observe in nature into one cohesive, theory. A supernatural being is basically f***ing irrelevant to such a concept, even if he was the one who started it, because he clearly doesn't feel the need to participate. And the confidence of that yes really screams to the level of stupid that we are truly dealing with here.
Simple as
Yes.
that.
Well, it's the identity has the reality has an identity. Okay? The identity is that as which something exists. Okay?
Depending on exactly how you define existence, that is most certainly not its identity necessarily. And even if it were, that's not how anyone defines reality. Reality is how the everything works. Although our descriptions of that is generally to the best of our abilities, either as individuals or as a collective. But just because we maybe can identify reality doesn't mean that it has an identity like a person, mostly because that's wishy-washy hogwash, aka a completely unsurprising thing for you to say.
Matter of fact, when you say the word reality, you're naming an identity. You're identifying something. This.
Oh, I see. So reality is a huge grey empty space devoid of substance and intelligence. Look, I don't want to agree with him, but come on. Also, we know you're trying to conflate identifying a thing with the more personal concept of having an identity. The universe isn't a being, it's just a big ol' is, at least as far as we can tell.
I'm smiling because your answer on this is so beautiful.
No. Hey, Michael, I forgot you were there. I mean, usually there's enough smug in a room to go round, but Chris really takes up all the hot air, doesn't he? But hey, good job on getting your sophistry in there to show that you can play with the big boys. But what he said wasn't beautiful. It was word salad, designed, as it always is, to make a person sound like they know something that you don't, whilst saying absolutely nothing at all. If only word salad were a real food, Chris could solve world hunger. I mean, it's not like he was gonna do it with his brain. And yet I do mean that both ways.
It just reminds me of Moses at the burning bush. And Moses at the burning bush says, "Who shall I tell the people that you are?" Talking to God. And God says, "Tell them I am that I am."
That's right.
Of course, God using the old circular logic to prove himself, a cunning strategy. If cunning had a brand new definition that meant fucking idiotic garbage. And what has this got to do with the universe? Like, even if God was the concept of identity, you guys have already defined the universe as thing that exists. Even if those weren't both waffly bullshit, they don't describe the same thing. And by at least one of your own worldviews, that being Christianity, absolutely don't describe the same thing at all. God is literally supposed to be transcendental, apart from, not of, the universe, for fuck's sake.
I am identity itself. I'm being himself.
That's exactly right. And that's what the Ctmu says. It just comes up with the mathematical structure that you need to build a reality out of that.
Ah, of course, Chris's bafflingly popular Ctmu, or cognitive theoretic model of the universe. His supposed theory of everything, that by things already stated can't possibly be a theory of everything. But that's only because it isn't one. Also, when I say bafflingly popular, I don't mean in scientific circles. It's more that stupid people think confident people saying they are smart means that those people are smart. So if they regurgitate their idiotic ideas, that means they are as fake smart as he is too. And well, that's half right.
You see? So you come up with that identity and then you search it for its properties. You see, once you've built the preliminary framework, then you start deducing the properties of this identity, and you find out that those properties match those of God as described in most of the world's major religions.
Wait. Are you telling me that if you define your God in religious terms, then religions are going to largely agree with that definition that it's real? Wow, mind blown. So if I define whiskey as that thing that I own, and that also the big book of Cirsic owns all the whiskey, well, that surely means that I do, in fact, own all of the whiskey, because of how smart I am. Also, the idea that you are deducing any properties of a god as defined by any religion using mathematics is clearly ridiculous nonsense that no one with half a brain would even attempt. I mean, seriously, if you want proof positive that Chris is thick as shit, it's, well, pretty much everything he says, but especially this.
Just the theistic religion, so I'm thinking Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, or are you talking also of, say...
Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism. Of course, Hinduism and Buddhism, they have a god. Taoism, you know, their central principle is the way, or the Tao, okay? And they don't see Tao as God.
Yep.
And then in Buddhism, of course, you've got, you know, they are trying basically to achieve sunyata, or emptiness, right? Which is...
All the religions agree with me, even the ones that categorically don't, is a bit of a classic. In fact, this shit is exactly why I compare Chris to spirit science, because it's same shit, different hat. Also, there's the old trick, using a bit of terminology from those things to make it appear as if you have some kind of in-depth understanding of those religions. I mean, you can type those words and the religion name into Google and look at that. They are definitely related. But even from his simple descriptions here, I strongly doubt that's the case. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't Buddhists trying to achieve nirvana? Sunyata is, as I understand, just a description of the nature of reality as a kind of non-existence. And that understanding that is a step to achieving Smells Like Teen Spirit. Now, obviously, Chris thinks that those are the exact same things, but I have a funny feeling that they might disagree.
Most Buddhists, a lot of Buddhists don't even understand what that's supposed to mean.
Well, having Chris tell pretty much an entire religion that they don't understand their own thing is quite the move. And I am, of course, sure that he's the one with the real answers. And hell, I'm sure many Buddhists would probably not claim to fully understand the inherent nature of reality. But that's less a shameful admission of ignorance and more a humble expression of the sheer magnitude of such a concept. This is coming from me, not a Buddhist. I don't really want to have to defend them, but this was just really fucking stupid. It's just an attack for absolutely no gain other than making yourself sound like an ignorant jackass. And if that was the goal, good job.
But once again, there's no God there. You can kind of read God implicitly. Some Buddhists, I've talked to Buddhists who actually think that there is a God in Buddhism of a sort.
A god is a very funny way of saying many fucking gods. Because while certain sects of Buddhism do in fact contain deities, an important fact you appear to be glossing over, or perhaps just didn't fucking know, is that there's nothing even approaching a be-all and end-all type of god. In fact, generally speaking, gods themselves, where they exist within a Buddhist framework, tend to be transient, with finite existence, often depicted in much the same way as royalty and leaders of reality, whose terms and powers are essentially always within a limited bound. It's just not the same thing.
But it's, you know, that concept of pure consciousness is what it is, okay? And if you ask them, well, whose consciousness are you talking about? They will point at themselves and say, my consciousness.
Again, I can't speak with the same unfounded confidence as Chris here, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. Consciousness as a seemingly fixed concept, according to him, is like the opposite of how it's supposed to work. That, in fact, thinking of yourself as an individual separate from everything is a wall to nirvana, and the understanding that you are part of a greater whole will lead to enlightenment. Not the other way around. It's less my consciousness and more just consciousness. Again, it's not that I buy it, but if you're going to co-opt this stuff to prove your dumb bullshit, at least get the fucking basics right.
In a way, they're, you know, they kind of attribute the existence of everything to themselves.
No, I'm pretty sure that's just what you think happened. Hurdy-dur, I'm Chris Langan. Me, I'm the biggest smart. Reality exists because of me and my big Brian. The closest possible interpretation of what you are trying and very much failing to say It's probably something along the lines of reality as we understand it is dependent on that same consciousness. But that it's attributed to any individual is just wrong. Again, this is all just my almost certainly very flawed understanding, but everything he said sounds completely and utterly wrong. And the fact that he says it with so much confidence is amazing.
Okay.
I know I've known a lot of people in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. who do the same thing, actually.
Well, that's right. That's why Buddhism is very fashionable among some of those people.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So basically, he's heavily implying that Buddhists are all solipsists, whilst believing that the entire universe agrees with him, if secretly or by mistake, because they can't possibly be the center of the universe. There's only space in there for me and my hoog brain.
So yes, but anyway, when you look at what they've all got, you come down to the same thing. All right?
But they don't. And even if your woefully inaccurate description of Buddhism was valid, it's categorically not saying even remotely the same things. That your garden variety monotheistic religion with a specific God who made a universe on purpose and exists outside of it forever, whereas Buddhism says reality is ultimately non-existence, you weren't made on purpose, and the sooner you get that through your thick head, the sooner you'll come to terms with it, and maybe even do a happy.
Everybody has the Tao, or the way, that's the way reality works, right? And everybody, has sunyata, which is pure syntax, right? Pure cognition with no instantiation, no content, right? And then you've got what the Abrahamic religions call God.
No, you can't do that. You can never do that. This constant spiritual mumbo-jumbo thing of taking various religious ideas and just mashing them together into some sort of sophistry paste that you can then spread on anything that doesn't work. Each of these ideas is specific to their individual religions for a reason. They are ideas that function within their specific frameworks. I mean, true or not, the ideas only work with all the other parts of those worldviews. The second you try to force them into another religion entirely, you will completely lose track of the already, in my opinion, very shaky ground that they are individually based on.
It's all the same thing.
They really, really aren't, and anyone who has a firm or hell even passing grasp on any of these philosophies should recognize what you are saying is utter nonsense. Unless, of course, they are predisposed to believing that they are right about everything, and anyone who disagrees with them about anything actually agrees without realizing it, because they're the stupid ones, not me. I meant to put my head through the fence till it got stuck. Bet you all feel pretty foolish now.
Okay, but what are its properties? Okay, are its properties such that you can deny the existence of God, or are its properties such that God definitely has to exist?
The first one? Well, okay, that's not really true. But I tell you what, it ain't the second one either. The universe as it stands doesn't actually give you any solid, tangible evidence for either position, at least in their basic form, big guy or no big guy. Now, when you start throwing in shit like, he not only exists but did the universe on purpose, made it for you and your mates whilst making only 0.00000000001% of it accessible to you, and he didn't think that the dinosaurs were worthy of raptor Jesus, well, the universe really doesn't look like that, or make any fucking sense whatsoever if you think it should.
And the answer is, God exists.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you there, mate. I think for the first time, but only because everything you have attempted to demonstrate so far has utterly failed to show anything other than you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Frankly, if you hadn't had said anything at all, I would have been on the fence about the whole concept. But when someone just fails on every point over and over again so hard, it's difficult not to see the truth.
God definitely
The
has
properties of the central substance and central principle of reality, those properties are attributed to God.
I mean, that assumes that the properties you think it has are a thing at all, but even if we give you all of them, it's still only a perhaps, and only by you and anyone who already agrees with you. But the problem with that is it's an assertion that's not backed up by anything, no evidence, and not even any good arguments. It's just a thing that you're saying, not a reflection of any kind of evidenced reality.
including, of course, things like you have the three O's: omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, but then you've also got consciousness.
No. You can't just skip tri-omni shit like it's a given and not something that fundamentally destroys much of the claims about God's existence when compared against the reality of, reality. When you have an all-powerful, all-loving God, side note, I don't really understand why all-knowing doesn't come under the all-powers. I think they just wanted 3 because that number made the writers' dicks real hard. But when you have a creature who loves everyone and everything forever, with the ability to do literally anything it could possibly want, and then have it make a world where everyone suffers all the time for no fucking reason, these attributes suddenly make zero fucking sense. Oh, and I also don't get why all loving is considered an optimal attribute when all drunk is right there. And I don't just say that because I'm applying for deityship next year. Vote for me. I probably won't kill you.
God has to be sentient.
Why? Again, this is just another claim with nothing behind it. I mean, sure, if you are simply presupposing your conclusion that what you want to be true is true, but that's not how we figure things out. Our ideas only work when we base them on what's actually happening, not wishful thinking. And I am using thinking very loosely in your case. If a god were to exist, there's no reason that it would have to have anything even resembling what we understand as sentience, even with the all-power. Think about it. The ability to do everything despite having no brain. It would really explain a lot of God's actions in the Bible.
So we're not just defining God out of existence. Sometimes you'll hear people say God exists, but they'll give God such a weak and shallow definition that the God that they're describing has no relation to the God that we conceive of.
No, you're not doing that. You're doing the opposite, and it's just as bad, probably worse. You're trying to, albeit poorly, define him into existence, and that doesn't work. You again have to prove something with more than just bad arguments. And hell, a weak definition is in fact much more likely to work as an idea of any kind of God, because you aren't throwing a bunch of shit at it that then falls apart when compared to what we actually see happening in the universe.
You're saying, no, this God is, God himself is conscious and therefore personal?
Yes.
Conscious, therefore personal. Come on, guys. Are you actually stupid enough to believe that consciousness in any way is directly correlated with the personal? I know, just answered my own question. But no, just because something has consciousness does not mean that it's personal. As in caring deeply about other people, as you are definitely implying. Fuck, I'm conscious and I literally hate everyone. No, my kids and Mrs. Sick don't count. They're not people, they're actually cool.
You can establish a personal relationship with God. We're images of God. You know what an image is? It's basically the product of a mapping. God maps himself into each human being.
So, if God maps himself onto humans, that must mean, at least according to what you're saying and what we know of humans, God must be a giant pulsating piece of excrement wrapped in a giant cum rag. Again, it would explain so many things about the stories in the Bible. But it's clearly not true anyway, because if he had mapped himself onto humans properly, then they wouldn't even exist. Wouldn't that be a shame?